All right, let's dive into this whole blitzscaling thing.
Okay,
It's
great.
how companies like Amazon and Facebook blew up, right? From tiny startups to huge empires.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
We're using Reid Hoffman's book as our guide here.
Great choice.
And trust me, it's way more than just growing fast.
Right, it's a whole different mindset.
This is about understanding how the world is being reshaped, like right now.
Absolutely. It's about this underlying shift in how competition works.
Oh, interesting.
It's not enough to be better anymore.
So what is it then?
You got to be first, the biggest. Create this like gravitational pull that nobody can escape.
So like a land grab, but digital. Instead of land, it's these digital spaces.
Exactly, and that's where prioritizing speed over efficiency comes in.
Okay, I'm listening.
In a normal business, you want the most output for your input. Right?
Yeah, efficiency, right.
But in blitzscaling, it's all speed.
Even if it means making mistakes.
Even if it means burning through resources.
Sounds kind of risky.
Hoffman compares it to building a plane while you're falling out of the sky.
Wow, okay, that's a pretty intense image.
It gets the point across, though.
But how sustainable is that, really?
That's the big question, and why understanding blitzscaling is so important.
Okay, so it's not just a guaranteed win.
No, it's high risk, high reward.
Gotta be careful with it.
You gotta be really careful, yeah.
Like Airbnb going into Europe, right?
Exactly. They weren't fully ready, took huge risks,
But paid off big time.
paid off big time.
So it wasn't just luck.
No way.
They had a plan to manage that chaos.
Absolutely.
What were some of their key moves?
They adapted their platform to the local markets.
Makes sense. Different cultures and all.
Right, different cultures, different rules.
They really focused on building trust too, right?
Yeah, safety and reliability.
Smart, especially in a new market.
It was all about calculated risks,
Pushing just hard enough without scaring people off.
like walking a tightrope but with a safety net.
Perfect analogy.
It shows how strategic blitzscaling really is.
Not just growing recklessly.
You gotta understand the market, see the challenges coming, be ready to adjust.
So let's get into the how-tos of blitzscaling.
Okay, let's break it down.
Hoffman talks about three main techniques, right?
It does, yeah.
Business model innovation, strategy innovation, and management innovation.
You got it.
Let's start with business models. What's the secret sauce?
First, you need a model that can handle huge growth.
Like Amazon, Netflix.
Exactly, they're built on platforms or subscriptions.
Makes them super scalable.
It's not just a good idea.
It's the system, right?
It's designing a system that multiplies with every new user or sale.
A positive feedback loop.
Yeah, like those chain reactions in physics.
Growth, feeding more growth.
And there are a few key things that make that happen. Finding a huge market.
Or even better, making your market bigger.
Exactly, like Amazon going from books to everything.
Then there's distribution.
Right, getting your product in front of as many people as possible, fast.
Dropbox is a good example, right?
Yeah.
With their referral program.
A great example of a smart distribution strategy.
So it's not just marketing as usual.
It's tapping into that viral spread, using social media, creating excitement,
What's the third piece of the puzzle?
leveraging network effects.
Okay, so what's that?
The more people use something, the better it gets for everyone.
Facebook, Uber, those kind of things.
Exactly. The more users they get, the more useful and appealing the service becomes.
A virtuous cycle.
It makes it really hard for competitors to catch up.
But doesn't that mean these companies could become too powerful?
It's a valid concern, and it brings us to strategy innovation.
Okay, so it's not enough to have a scalable model.
You gotta know when to push and when to hold back.
Twitter had trouble with that, right? Their user growth stalled.
Exactly. Timing is everything.
It's like dancing, knowing when to lead and when to follow.
But how do you make those calls in such a fast-changing environment?
Yeah, it's hard to predict the future.
That's where experience and gut feeling come in.
Gotta be able to read the market.
Understand the competition. See the pitfalls before you fall in.
Like Nokia, they were too slow to adapt.
They got wiped out by Apple and Samsung.
So sometimes being inefficient can be the right move.
If it means reacting faster to change.
It's like perfection is the enemy of good.
Perfect example is Amazon's early days.
They were messy, right?
They were inefficient by normal standards.
But that let them move fast and dominate.
Exactly. Embracing the chaos can be an advantage.
Interesting.
It's all about calculated risks and adapting quickly.
Makes sense.
That's the essence of blitzscaling.
I'm starting to get it.
It's a wild ride.
But it can pay off big time if you do it right.
That's for sure. It's kind of wild how those companies were willing to disrupt themselves.
Even when they were already doing well.
Yeah, even when they were winning, that's a key part of blitzscaling.
Always challenging your own assumptions.
Exactly.
Even being willing to cannibalize your own product.
To stay ahead of the game.
It's kind of counterintuitive, you know?
It is.
You'd think you'd stick with what works.
Right, if it ain't broke.
But in blitzscaling, standing still means falling behind.
You're either growing or dying. That brings us to the third technique.
Management innovation.
Management innovation, yeah. This is where things get really interesting.
I bet.
It's like building a plane while you're flying it.
No kidding.
How do you even create a structure that can handle that much change?
That's the million-dollar question.
It is.
Guessing there's no easy answer.
Not really, but Hoffman offers some pretty interesting insights.
Like those counterintuitive rules he talks about?
Yeah, the rules for managing a blitzscaling company.
Some of them sound kind of crazy.
They do. One of them is hire people you wouldn't normally hire.
What that supposed to mean?
Bring in new perspectives, shake things up a bit.
Avoid groupthink, right?
Exactly. Challenge the status quo.
So embrace diversity, even if it causes some friction.
Exactly. Create a culture where people can push back.
Okay, I like that.
Another one is launch a product that embarrasses you.
Oh, come on, really?
It's about being willing to ship something imperfect.
Something you know you'll have to fix quickly.
Yeah, embrace the minimum viable product mentality.
Don't let perfection get in the way of progress.
Exactly. It ties into another principle. Let some fires burn.
Wait, what?
You can't solve every problem at once.
Especially in blitzscaling, right?
You've got to be ruthless with your priorities.
Focus on the big stuff. Let the small stuff go. Sounds kind of stressful.
It can be. Blitzscaling is not for everyone.
You got to be comfortable with uncertainty.
Embrace change and be laser focused on execution.
It's a high-stakes game.
It is, but it can be incredibly rewarding too.
Especially for those who thrive in that kind of environment.
Exactly.
We've talked a lot about tech, but does blitzscaling only apply to Silicon Valley?
That's a good question.
We mentioned Obama's campaign earlier.
Right, it's a great example.
How else can these principles be applied?
Blitzscaling isn't limited to any one industry.
So it's more like a mindset.
It's a mindset, a set of principles for achieving rapid growth.
Like Obama, using technology to mobilize voters.
Exactly, using social media, online fundraising, data analytics.
It's amazing how adaptable these concepts are.
It really shows how universal these principles are.
But all this speed, it seems like it could lead to mistakes, you know?
You're right, that's where responsible blitzscaling comes in.
Okay, so how do you blitzscale without running off the rails?
As companies grow so fast, they have a huge impact on society.
We can't just ignore the potential downsides.
Exactly. Finding that balance, speed, and responsibility is the big challenge.
Like Uber, they disrupted the taxi industry.
But they also faced a lot of criticism.
For their treatment of workers, right?
And their business practices in general.
They pushed the boundaries a little too far.
They're a perfect case study in the complexities of blitzscaling.
They were innovative, but also raised a lot of ethical questions.
It shows that blitzscaling doesn't give you a free pass.
So how do you strike that balance?
Hoffman and Ass actually offer a framework for thinking about it.
Okay, I'm listening.
It starts with understanding the different types of risk.
They talk about systemic and non-systemic risks, right?
Exactly.
Break that down for me. What's the difference?
Systemic risks can harm the whole system.
Like the entire market, the industry.
Even society as a whole.
Big picture stuff.
Think about job losses from automation or misinformation spreading online.
Those are serious issues.
They need a different approach than more localized risks.
So non-systemic risks are more company-specific.
Right, like a competitor coming out of nowhere.
Or a PR disaster.
Those are still challenges, but they're more manageable.
So how do you approach these different risks in blitzscaling mode?
You need different strategies for each.
Makes sense.
For systemic risks, you gotta be proactive.
Oh.
Talk to regulators, policymakers, even your competitors.
Be transparent.
Be open about your goals, the potential impact.
Work together to minimize the downsides.
To recognize that your actions have ripple effects.
Think long-term. Consider the bigger picture.
And be willing to work with others to find solutions.
Sounds like a lot of collaboration.
It is. For non-systemic risk, it's about being adaptable.
Right.
Have a backup plan. Be ready to change direction.
Don't be afraid to make tough calls.
Like having a fire extinguisher for small fires.
But also fireproofing the whole building.
That's a great way to put it.
So what are some specific strategies for responsible blitzscaling?
Like, what does it look like in action? Hoffman and, have these 4 strategies, right, for making it work.
4 strategies for responsible blitzscaling.
Yeah, the first one is kind of basic.
Okay, hit me with it.
Don't be evil.
Seriously. Wasn't that Google's thing?
It was, and yeah, it's kind of cliche now.
A bit of a Silicon Valley joke.
But the idea behind it still matters.
So what's the deeper meaning?
It's about integrity. Being honest.
With your customers, your employees, everyone.
And yourself, building a business you're actually proud of.
One that doesn't cut corners or exploit people.
Exactly, one that's built to last.
Not just for profit, but ethically too.
You can't fake a good reputation. It's got to be there from the start.
True. That leads us to the second strategy.
Obey the law.
Another obvious one.
You'd think so, but when you're moving that fast.
It's tempting to bend the rules.
Especially with all the different laws in different countries.
Yeah, navigating that can be a nightmare.
Hoffman and, talk about being a good citizen versus an ethical pirate.
Wait, an ethical pirate? What's that supposed to be?
Think of those early disruptors, like Uber or Airbnb.
They shook things up.
They definitely did, and they didn't always follow the rules.
But they wanted to change those rules.
For the better, create a more innovative system.
They believed they were making things better for everyone.
That's the difference between an ethical pirate and a regular criminal.
So they're still operating within a moral code.
Even if they're pushing the boundaries.
Their goal isn't just to exploit the system.
It's to improve it. So what's strategy number 3?
Let's hear it.
Pay your taxes.
Okay, I'm starting to see a pattern here.
It sounds simple, but with global business and taxes.
It gets complicated fast.
Hoffman and it's not just about the law.
It's about contributing to the system that supports your business.
It's a social responsibility.
Taking a long-term view.
And the last one might surprise you.
Lay it on me.
It's let it burn.
Wait, seriously?
You can't fight every battle, answer every criticism.
You have to prioritize, focus your energy.
Let the small stuff go, even if it's uncomfortable.
It's about knowing what really matters.
And having the guts to let go of the rest.
That's tough, but I get it.
Especially in blitzscaling, there's always more to do than you can handle.
Okay, so with all this in mind, why should I, the average person, care about blitzscaling?
It seems like it's mostly for CEOs and investors.
It's not really something that affects me directly.
But blitzscaling is shaping the world whether you realize it or not.
How so?
It's creating new industries, changing old ones.
It's changing how we work, how we communicate, how we live.
It's like understanding the forces shaping our future.
Even if we're not the ones in control.
Exactly. You don't have to build the next Facebook.
But understanding how blitzscaling works helps you understand the world.
It's like a decoder ring for all the rapid changes happening around us.
So we can see the patterns, anticipate the trends.
Maybe even spot opportunities that others miss.
I like that. So what's next? Blitzscaling has already come so far.
What else can it do?
That's the big question, Hoffman. And I think we're just getting started.
They talk about AI, biotechnology, even space exploration.
Those are some pretty big frontiers.
And with technology accelerating everything.
Who knows what'll be disrupted next?
It's both exciting and kind of scary, right?
Yeah, like we're on the edge of something huge.
This massive wave of change that's going to sweep over everything.
And the choices we make now will decide what that future looks like.
As individuals, as companies, as a society.
Will we use blitzscaling to make things better?
Or will it just make things worse?
Big questions, but important ones.
That's why this conversation matters.
It's not just about business.
It's about how blitzscaling affects society and humanity's future.
So what's the one thing you want our listeners to remember from this deep dive?
Pay attention. Blitzscaling is everywhere.
And understanding it gives you a huge advantage.
Whether you're starting a business, working for one, or just trying to make sense of it all.
Knowing the rules of the game can make all the difference.
That's the key takeaway.
Great advice. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. It's been fascinating.
It has been. Thanks for having me.
And to everyone listening, we hope this has given you some things to think about.
The world is changing fast.
But by understanding the forces at play, we can all help shape a better future.